Hey everybody, this is Bill from GMAT and GRE Math Made Simple. I'm going to go a little bit here and talk about the differences between the GMAT and GRE math questions. So I'll give it a second or two to get at least one or two people on here. If not, that's okay. You can watch it in the replay. Hashtag replay. Okay, so give it like 10 seconds. Okay, so let's get started here. Now, I've been getting questions that deal with what are the differences between the GMAT and GRE math sections. Now, both of them are required for their actual getting into grad school, so part of the GMAT and GRE, it has a quantitative section. So let's go through each one right now. So when it comes to the GMAT, you have a different number of sections. You have the quantitative and integrative reasoning. Now, when it comes to that, you also deal with, problem solving, data sufficiency when it comes to the quantitative, and also multi-source reasoning, graphics, interpretation, and so on, which I'll get to later. But when it comes to the GRE, there's two sections as well, but they're mostly problem solving, and they got to be in the form of multiple choice or numeric entry. Now, when it comes to questions, there are 49 questions total when it comes down to the actual GMAT math section. And when you do that, you have 37 that are quantitative and 12 that are into integrated reasoning. Also, when it comes down to the GRE, there's 40, but they're split up into two different sections of 20 questions each. Now, when it comes down to like the length of time that you have to complete them, you have 105 minutes or an hour and 45 minutes, depending on what you want to put it as. And you have 75 minutes for the quantitative, and then you have 30 minutes for the integrated reasoning. Now, you also have a time limit for the GRE as well. Of course, they both have different ones because they're different tests. But you have 60 minutes total between the two sections that you have to answer those 40 questions. So you'll have a 30-minute session in the beginning, and then you go back and do another 30-minute session. Okay. Now, when it comes down to like the actual topics involved, like the topics tested, you'll see that for the quantitative, there's data sufficiency. So if I think it's one of those tricky questions that say, well, A is the correct answer, or that'll be A1, or 2, B is the correct answer, or 1 and B together are correct, or 1 and 2 together do not equal, or neither, it just doesn't, both of them together work. That's the whole data sufficiency, and that's a little tricky. But we're going to get to that later on when we start putting out some more questions. Now, the problem solving is quite simple. You just solve a problem that's there, and then the answer will be there, and you find out the answer from those choices. Integrated reasoning is where people have the hardest time, because those are more critical thinking questions, and you make sure that you go through and you actually look at the question they're asking, and then go from there. When it comes to the multi-source reasoning, you have to go through different spreadsheets and maybe some different graphs that will cross-reference with each other so you can make your answer correctly. Same thing with the graphic interpretation. Usually it would be a very simple map or something, like a bar chart or line chart. It'd be something that would be nice and easy for you to do, and you can figure your answer that way. But pay attention, because sometimes they might try to trick you with the words that they put in the questions. For the two-part analysis, it kind of joins in with the multi-source and with the actual graphics interpretation, but also it has to deal with getting an answer and then fitting another part as well. So sometimes you might get an answer, but it's not really the question. That's why I had to listen and look at the question. When it comes to the table analysis, it's just like the multi-source reasoning, but this one's going to be strictly a table, and you have to make your own judgment, your own question, like answer your own questions based off of that. Now, those ones right here, these 4 are very, very tricky. So just watch out if you're going to do the GMAT. Okay, GMAT is tough. GRE, since it's mostly problem solving, these are the topics that you're going to be messing with. Arithmetic, you're going to be looking with algebra, data analysis, and geometry. Data analysis is kind of similar to data sufficiency and the interpretation. You have to look at what's given to you. Either it's a table or it's going to be a graph, and you have to find out what the analysis on that, and then you go from there. Sometimes all you need is just a regular calculator, but for data analysis, it's going to be numbers wise. The GRE seems to be more numbers, while this is more concept and then numbers later. Okay? Now when it comes down to the actual points that you get here, the score range that you get for quantitative could be 0 to 60. That's great. That's a lot of points you can get out of it for your GMAT score. And then 1 to 8 for integrated reasoning. Now, the reason why it's so low is that some people really have a hard time with that. And I think when the board members went through and did all this stuff to make this test, they were realizing that people were having the hardest time on this one, so they decided not to go through and make it so difficult to where you can't get any points. Or the points don't really matter as much. Even though that might be a defining factor that might help you get into grad school, being able to have some critical integrated reasoning. Now, for the score range for the GRE, it's 130 to 170. Of course, the more questions you get right, the more difficult questions you get right, you'll be closer to the 170 mark. But if you get less than that, it'll bring us down to 130. Now, what you need to do now is to think about what do you want to take? Do you want to take the GMAT or the GRE? Now, if I had known this before I went and tried for grad school, before I got in, I would have picked the GRE. Because it seems a lot simpler, it's mostly problem solving, and I love problem solving. But I wanted a challenge, apparently, or I just didn't know, and I ended up going through and doing the GMAT. Now, the GMAT was more difficult. It even says so that it's more difficult because it's more about critical thinking, less about problem solving. Even though you are technically solving a problem, it's not as obvious. But if you want to go for the GRE, I would say go for that. That one is a little bit more straightforward when it comes down to the math portion. It's easier, you can go through and do it. The questions that I've been posting have seemed to be very simple, as some people have gone through and actually answered them. So, what I suggest is, if you really want to go do either one of these, I have a program for both of them. We can do both one-on-ones, or we can do like a self-paced type of classroom where I'll put some questions out for you, you answer them, and then at the end of the week, or depending on maybe the end of the month, we'll go over the questions you got right. I'll put it in a live just like I'm doing right now to see what the questions to each one of these answers are, because I'll be posting many of them, and then we'll go through there. So I'm going to put up a little bit of a sheet that makes it look a lot better than this, because I know my handwriting is not that good, but I do have a sheet that I will put out in the Instagram page. I'll also share it to my Facebook group and my Facebook page as well. Okay, so if you like what you saw, hit the like, leave a comment, do something that that'd be great. Or if you want to go through and meet me in general, I have a little networking event every last Friday of each month, so we can just talk about GMAT and GRE math, maybe grad school in general. If you're thinking about going to Baruch College, either for undergrad or grad school, since that's my alma mater, I can help you out as well. I can give you the ins and outs of what to expect. If you're a veteran and you want to go to grad school, definitely hit me up either in the inbox or just come see me, like I said, this Friday. It's the last Friday of this month, and I'll be there from between 5 and 6 at Manhattanville Coffee, which I believe is at 142 or 134. Either way, it's on Edgecombe Ave. It's right between 141st and 142nd and 8th Ave. It's on that next avenue over. Okay, so this is going to be goodbye for now. I will go through and post the extra sheet that looks a lot better than this, and then I'll go in and put some hashtags in there for you. Hope guys talk to you later.